UFO whistleblower David Grusch, who testified to Congress in July of 2023 of this year, that the government is reverse engineering non-human origin craft, right? We have crash retrieval programs, right? Secret programs within the government. He is now coming out and saying he has firsthand knowledge about this, that he was read into a legacy UFO crash retrieval program. Okay, so up until now, I've talked to people that have seen things and done things and whatever. But now in his latest Newsnation interview, he's saying he has firsthand knowledge and he was read into a program. So the truth is, this is not the first time he has actually mentioned this. I have brought this up on the channel myself. He's kind of sprinkled it in other interviews before. So what we're going to do is take a look at the Newsnation interviews that he just did, which is great. Okay, we're going to take a look at a clip from Ross Coulthart talking about the interview, right? And we're going to take a look at a thread that's got all the different points from before, when David Grusch has mentioned he had firsthand knowledge. So before this moment. So again, it's not the first time, but it's the first time everybody's talking about it. So anyway, again, what's the big deal here? Well, David Grusch is saying, I was read into a program, right? Up until now, that hasn't happened. So hi, I'm Patrick. This is Vetted. Leave a like on this video. That will really help it out a lot and help David Grusch and spread this video, spread the love. Leave a comment down below of what you think about David Grusch saying he has firsthand knowledge. He was read into a program, right? So tell me what you think. And hit that subscribe button, y'all. We're trying to get to 3,000 before Christmas. Thank y'all so much for the support. It absolutely means the world. So let's jump in, y'all. See where we're at. Okay. First, let's just jump into the first interview here with Grusch. Okay. We got 3 video clips we're watching. This is one.
Force intelligence officer turned whistleblower David Grusch came on Newsnation and made an earth-shattering claim. He alleged the U.S. government has a top-secret program that has been studying and reverse engineering non-human original technical vehicles, basically UFOs, since before World War II.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it.
He'd never heard of the program, but now the whole world has. Because not only did that interview put Grusch on the map, it put him in the hot seat on Capitol Hill. Grusch testified in front of Congress alongside 2 other military veterans, all 3 telling lawmakers and the public what they knew about unidentified anomalous phenomenon, UAPs, which is the new word for UFOs. What he says our government knows about them.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General, and some of which to the intelligence committees. I actually had the people with the firsthand knowledge provide a protected disclosure to the Inspector General.
Grusch is no publicity hound. Since that day, he's remained protective over those sources and very respectful of security obligations, only giving a handful of interviews on the subject. But tonight I sat down with him for a wide-ranging conversation. We started with the latest news that key portions of an unprecedented measure to disclose classified government records relating to UAPs, those measures were stripped from the annual defense spending bill. It was not the news Grusch was hoping for. David, we've just heard that 2 key provisions were killed from this defense bill that basically water down the requirement to make public any information about spacecraft, about alien remains. I take it you're disappointed.
Yes, yeah, thank you for having me on today. And, what we're witnessing right now is, quite frankly, the greatest legislative failure in American history. You had a very strong amendment for government transparency on this issue, whether you believe my allegations or not. This is a government transparency issue at large. And, the legislation was modeled off of, previous government transparency issues. So we had a mixed bag of success, right?
That's a good point from Grusch. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I won't interrupt again on this one. Just real quick, that's a good point. If you're ever talking to people that are outside of the UFO world, right, and you're talking to them about it, you just got to say, look, it doesn't matter if Grusch is right or not, like he's truth or not. Like, this is about government transparency at its core, right? That's something anybody should be able to get behind.
Conference report that was submitted last week, Section 1687, which effectively fences off money to illegal special access programs, something that Marco Rubio, Mark Warner, and his staff on the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence championed. That did make it through conference, and I do congratulate the senators that pushed hard to make sure that that was not removed during conference to help further this effort.
It leaves the door open for anything that is, quote, national security, we get to keep secret.
100%, and that's why we were going to have a neutral 9-person panel, and all that was enumerated in the Schumer rounds, amendment earlier this year, and that was not written in a vacuum. That was written, with other individuals bringing them information as well.
All right. Were you hoping to be on that panel, that 9-person panel that would make those decisions on what had to stay secret and what could be made public?
Certainly, it's not my place to be on the panel. I certainly offered through certain staff up to the White House. I would be happy to participate. I'm happy to get coffee, for God's sakes. But you do know I was actually behind the scenes interviewing former undersecretaries, former general officers, Nobel laureate type folks that would fill those specific billets on the, URRB, which is the disclosure panel that was described in the Schumer amendments. So there are certainly people of high repute that were willing to serve on that panel to do their best to provide the president a recommendation on what he should disclose. And now that the panel is...
I wonder who was supposed to be on this panel. I wonder who they were interviewing. I would love to see a short list of that, right? Wouldn't y'all like to know who David Grusch, and that's interesting to know too, that's news, right? That David Grusch was interviewing the people for this panel. That hasn't been said before. That's interesting. And who was he interviewing, right? Is it from the small pool of UFO members, right? Get the Gary Nolans and that sort of thing, or was he looking outside of that pool of people? I'm curious.
Not signed into public law on the legislative branch side. We need to advocate for the executive branch, the Office of the President, through executive action, to instate such a body to advise him on the best course of action now that, Congress has failed to legislate appropriately. And I'm here to, praise and admonish. Certainly the Senate. Thank you for proposing that legislation. I'm glad you got some provisions passed, but folks in the House, total failure. It's one of the biggest failures probably in the history of Congress.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find Newsnation on...
One of the biggest failures in Congress, legislative history, right? Well, all right, let's go to the next. I got all the clips for you, people, so you don't have to go find them yourself. All right, here we go. Next one.
I'm here to, praise and admonish. Certainly the Senate. Thank you for proposing that legislation. I'm glad you got some provisions passed, but folks in the House, total failure. It's one of the biggest failures probably in the history of Congress.
Well, now to a new exclusive interview with UFO whistleblower David Grusch. Remember, he first went public with us about claims of a UFO crash retrieval program in a Newsnation interview earlier this summer.
So now in a new interview, you saw that there with our Elizabeth Vargas, he is hitting back at Congress for what he calls their lack of transparency. Tom Dempsey joins us now to explain. Tom?
Hey, good morning, Adrian. Yeah, this morning, longtime Air Force.
There's more to come of David Grusch in this clip, so stay tuned.
David Grusch calls Congress's decision to strip key portions of a measure to declassify more records about unidentified aerial phenomena as the greatest legislative failure in American history. He also told Newsnation's Elizabeth Vargas in an exclusive interview that he plans to release more information about what exactly he knows in the coming weeks about things like the government possibly retrieving an aircraft, non-human aircraft of exotic origin, as well as the government running a possible secret crash retrieval program. Take a listen.
Yeah, pal, where you been?
Now is quite frankly the greatest legislative failure in American history. You know, you had a very strong amendment for government transparency on this issue, whether you believe my allegations or not. You know, this is a government transparency issue at large.
Now, after speaking with Newsnation this past summer, Grusch testified in front of a House committee about UAPs being a national security threat. But with lawmakers facing more calls to disclose classified records about UAPs, key portions of a measure to do just that got stripped from the annual defense spending bill, including a requirement to form a 10-person panel chosen by the president to sort through records to possibly declassify, and another granting the government full possession of all recovered non-human technology currently kept by private entities like defense contractors. Pushback to the disclosure included national security concerns, and the measure now includes a list of exemptions for disclosing UAP records, including if records threaten national defense, compromise national intelligence, or threaten sources and methods of intel gathering. While this change frustrated Grusch, he told Newsnation's Elizabeth Vargas that he plans to release more information soon about what exactly he knows.
Well, I couldn't be very upfront about my firsthand knowledge until recently. I got some other security approvals through the pre-publication and security review process. And I did have some firsthand knowledge of some specific parts of the program. I'm currently drafting an op-ed that I'm going to release in a few weeks, and I will be discussing what I actually do know firsthand.
Now, opponents of these exemptions call them far too broad, and some lawmakers right here on Capitol Hill continue to voice concerns about being stonewalled when trying to get access to records regarding unidentified aerial phenomena.
Thank you for watching.
I couldn't wait for that guy to finish talking so I could get to what David Grusch just said, right? So he's got I got one more clip to show real quick. He's got an op-ed coming out, right? An opinion piece that he's going to put out in some sort of publication somewhere in a few weeks, talking about his firsthand knowledge, right? That's the big news. So that time-wise, that basically hits, it's December 12th. That basically hits sometime around, Christmas, end of the year for the new year, somewhere in there, right? Somewhere in this time. He's going to be releasing an article that explains his firsthand knowledge. Boy, is everyone going to read that. My God. I cannot wait for it myself. So what do y'all think? Why now? Why is this only now coming out? Why did he only get approved now from the Office of Pre-Publication, right? DARPA, I think they call it, right? Why now? And when did that approval come in? Is it too much to ask that we just get all the information that everyone knows at once? I don't know. Just do a one-all, tell-all interview where you just say it all. Say the juiciest stuff first and then go backwards. I don't know. Anyway, let's watch what Ross Coulthart thinks about David Grusch's firsthand knowledge admittance, right?
Released information to the public about government UFO projects. Grusch is vowing to press on with his
Sorry, I screwed that up.
campaign to get more secrets out to the public. And for the first time, he says he does have firsthand knowledge of the government UFO program. So joining us now is Newsnation special correspondent Ross Coulthart. He was the first to interview David and brought the world all of his revelations. Ross, what do you know anything about this firsthand information that he has? He says he's writing and going to release in the next week or so.
Sorry, I'm just, well, let's just have a little fun here. I love how Elizabeth Vargas is like, hey, Ross, you know anything? Do you know anything about that first-hand knowledge of UFO stuff? Is that something maybe you know about? Have you and David Grusch talked about that? You know, UFO from another planet, that stuff. Do you know anything about that? Aliens? Just like funny the way it's talked about. Like, do you know about that new restaurant that's coming out? Have you heard about that? Have you heard about that new contraption? Like some new invention they got put out and like, oh, you got to use it. It's changing your life. Like asking about that. I don't know. Anyway, sorry. I just thought that was funny.
Sort of op-ed with new firsthand information. Do you know what he's talking about?
I do. Yeah, I've got a pretty good idea, Elizabeth. And hello once again. I'm actually very excited that you've managed to pull that out of him because I've been waiting for a while for him to provide a rejoinder to the critics who've constantly asserted that there is no first-hand evidence. I can't talk with any specificity because I frankly don't know. I suspect it's something to do with either photographic or video material that he may have seen, but I'm only speculating. But I just want to emphasize as well for the people who say that.
Well, and he's admitted to photographs and video, so I don't know why that would be any different.
There is no first-hand evidence involving David Grusch. They miss the significance time and time again of the finding made by the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community when he referred David Grusch's matter to Congress for investigation, that Mr. Grusch's allegations were credible and urgent.
Yeah.
And he based that not just on Mr. Grusch's allegations, but on the first-hand evidence of multiple witnesses, in fact, dozens of witnesses who've since come forward over the past 2 years to give evidence to Congress. So there is a multiple number of witnesses that have come forward to Congress. And the maddening, frustrating thing is that we're now hindered by virtue of this gag put through on this legislation. There's no longer going to be this presidential records review panel that would have allowed us the opportunity to get this information slowly declassified.
Yeah, like right now, Ross, anybody can just say, oh, that violates national security, take that one out. We can't, I mean,
I'm going to make a video this week about that, right? I wrote a list down. What are the top 10 things getting in the way of disclosure, right? Of UFO disclosure, UFO transparency, right? Like, what are the top 10 things that are stopping us from knowing the truth, right? And that excuse of national security is always brought up, right? But at the same time, that's a valid excuse, right? Like, it's a double-edged sword. We can't be so naive to think, oh, you can't ever say that. You can, but they can use that, right, negatively. But I also got to say this, because we got journalists here talking. One of the things on my list is protection of sources, right? Ross Coulthart, all these people have sources that they don't want to reveal. And they'll say, I'll go to jail for my source. I'll protect that source. So them protecting their sources is more important than the truth coming out, right? We say that the government, oh, they use a national security excuse, but then that same person also doesn't reveal stuff because of quote unquote personal security, if you want to call it, right? Of not revealing that source, right? And I think those two things are the top two things getting in the way of disclosure. I don't think it's our government getting in the way of disclosure. I think it's journalists adhering to protecting their sources above anything, right? That is what is getting in the way of disclosure. The people investigating this, ironically, are the ones holding us back. Because, right, they're gatekeeping that information as well, right? I'm just saying. Anyway, I'm going to make a longer video on that and talk about it. So let me know what y'all think down in the comments below. Look, y'all, I got to be honest. Y'all leave the greatest comments. I made a note here to tell myself, to remind me to tell y'all. Like, y'all leave the greatest comments. I learned so much from y'all. Whatever topic I do, make a video about, and then I go read the comments, I learn about that thing. I do. I always learn from y'all. Y'all are very smart, and y'all tell me about other things that are going on. This is a good place for anybody in the community to go in our comment section and kind of learn, right? You can learn some stuff from other people, learn from each other, because I learn from y'all. So again, thank y'all for all the great comments. So anyway, leave the comments. Tell me what y'all think about what I just said. All right, let's continue watching. Sorry to interrupt.
Wait, Ross, it comes back to, I deliberately read that quote from Congressman Moskowitz from Florida to David Grusch, because he wasn't at first a believer in this. He thought it was all like nonsense. But once he was convinced that there is something there, because every time he asked questions and started, as he said, pull on a thread, we got stonewalled. In other words, this enormous effort to shut everything down seems to have actually had the unintended effect of creating a few more believers.
So you see that same thing of stonewall. Well, that's exactly what journalists, again, nothing against these journalists. I'm just saying, and I do believe in journalistic integrity and loyalty and protecting your sources. I believe in that, but I'm just saying it unironically gets in the way, right? Because journalists stonewall as well. Oh, I can't reveal my source, can't reveal my source, can't reveal my source. Anonymous sources, can't reveal my source. Which is it? It's like we can't have it both ways. You know, do these journalists need to start requiring that they, you know, you can't be anonymous anymore? If you're going to, you know, I don't know. Anyway, sorry. That's not what this video is about. Let's get back to this.
There are 2 points to make from that, Elizabeth. Firstly, as you pointed out in your interview with David, if there's nothing to hide, why did they fight so hard to stop legislation that would have allowed transparency? And the second issue is, frankly, that we are going to see now the coming forward of people who the government can't control. Here was an opportunity for the president and for the congressional leadership to take a leadership role in ensuring that probably the biggest story in human history is properly told and given proper custodianship by the US government, which after all, frankly, I'll say it black and white, has presided over a cover-up for much of the last 70 to 80 years. And here was a unique opportunity from very senior people on both sides of the Congress to get legislation that would have allowed the controlled disclosure of information. And I know a lot of people say it's a very naive idea, but I can tell you, I spoke to senators, I spoke to congressmen, congresswomen, and there was a real willingness to see this brought out into the open.
Yeah.
I think what's happened is the Pentagon has won, and so have sections of the defense aerospace industry that frankly don't want to have to disclose what they know because they're frankly worried about getting into trouble.
Ross Coulthart, so interesting. We'll have much more with David tomorrow night when he'll take on those critics who've attacked him, and more on those medical records that were leaked in an effort to impugn his credibility. So great to see you again, Ross. Thank you.
So let's go to this tweet thread that I have. Anyway, so yeah, what do y'all think about that? So there's another part of David Grusch's interview that's going to be coming out. We'll be covering that separately. So, yeah, there you go. You've seen the interviews. You've seen Ross's response. Now, for people saying this is the first time David Grusch has mentioned having firsthand knowledge, not true. So there's a great tweet I found from UAP News. David Grusch revealed tonight that he has been given permission to reveal what he knows from firsthand experience being read into a UFO program. This is not the first time Grusch has hinted to the fact that he has firsthand knowledge. So this is what I brought up over the summer, which was that he did this French interview in this newspaper. I kept wondering why nobody was talking about that. And in there, he mentioned that. I have firsthand knowledge. I remember thinking, why is nobody talking about that? They keep saying he doesn't have firsthand knowledge. He clearly said he does. Anyway, when I asked David Grusch, have you seen any material yourself? He answered, I have not seen very interesting things. I have seen very interesting things that I am not allowed to speak publicly about quite yet. I have not an approval from Defense Office of Pre-Publication Security Review. So, and then below right there, right, you can see in the tweet, it says, I certainly viewed some things with my own eyes, but I can't give too much details yet. So he had already kind of hinted at it. Then there's this tweet from Lou Elizondo. Some guy says, and he has zero firsthand info, zero. He heard from a person he can't name. Lou Elizondo states, you are wrong. You don't know the full story. Have a good day. And during the hearing, Grusch also revealed, right, that he was privy to firsthand knowledge but can only reveal detail of that in a classified setting. I have to be careful to describe what I've seen firsthand and not in this environment, but I can't answer that question behind closed doors. Then on the Joe Rogan interview, Grusch mentioned again that he had firsthand knowledge. Let's watch.
Do know I took those people, a lot of them, and I brought them to the Intelligence Community Inspector General when I filed my complaint, because I don't want people to, hear it from a secondhand source. People call it hearsay, whatever. Though I have some firsthand knowledge, I eventually talk about someday. I'm trying to get it cleared, but through security processes.
There you go. He did say it right there. And then, yeah, that's it. So he has shared it multiple times. So anyway, this is big news, right? I mean, again, it's kind of been sprinkled and out there, but, let's see what happens. David Grusch has firsthand knowledge. He's been read into a UFO program, right? One of these secret programs. So I'm definitely curious to find out what this is about. Yeah, cannot wait to read this op-ed, and can't wait to read y'all's comments. Again, thank y'all for all the wonderful, thoughtful, respectful, professional, insightful, intelligent comments y'all leave. I got to admit, great job. Thank y'all very much. I learned a lot from y'all. Y'all are very smart people. So anyway, thank y'all again for watching. This is Patrick with Vetted. Hit that like button. Again, comment down below. Hit that subscribe button. Trying to get to 3,000 before Christmas. We'll see you guys on the next video. As always, remember, every day's a gift. Peace, y'all.